The stock market is set up for a large decline over the foreseeable future, and that is because the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, they're both coming up to levels of major resistance, and we're also overbought according to RSI. Both of these factors lead me to believe that the stock market will likely fall over the coming days to weeks. And I'll explain that thesis now. So what I'll do in this video is I'll give a price prediction for the SPY. I'll give a price prediction for the triple Qs. I'll give a price prediction for Meta, Tesla, Amazon, Apple, NVDA, Upstart, Riot, Mara, C3AI, Rivian, and SoundHound AI. So with that being said, let's talk about it. So we're coming off the test resistance at around 450 bucks or 455, 457. This is where the S&P 500 topped out in July. Therefore, I believe we see this level act as another top for the S&P 500, and we get a move lower down to the 100-day moving average at around $440 over the coming days. And like I said, the S&P 500 is overbought according to our opinion, and we can see that the last time the market was overbought and we were at this level was in July, and we moved lower over the coming weeks. So the market typically does react pretty quickly to overbought conditions. Therefore, I believe we see a nice pullback over the coming trading days for the S&P 500. And then let's take a look at the triple Qs here. So similar story here for the triple Qs for the Nasdaq, or really shouldn't say the Nasdaq, but the tech sector, I should say. So we're coming up to resistance at around $490, which is roughly where the index topped out in July. And we are also overbought according to RSI. Therefore, I believe we see a move lower. I think we'll get a similar move lower from the triple Qs down to the 100-day moving average at around $370, which, just to give you a gauge, is about 5% lower. I think that 5% gap down likely happens pretty quickly. I could see, over the next 2 weeks, getting a 5% drawdown would not be shocking, in my humble opinion. And then with that being said, let's talk about some individual stocks here. So I think Meta comes back down to support at around 325, kind of just being drawn down with the broader market. So the stock is trading above this past resistance level, should act as new support. I believe we see Meta come down to 325 over this coming week. This is an outperforming stock. We're above all daily moving averages. So I'm not saying that the stock's going to fall off a cliff, but I think as the broader market, kind of moves lower, this stock could also move lower. And then with that being said, let's take a look at Tesla here. So Tesla is coming off the test resistance at around $240, which is where the stock has consistently topped out over the past couple trading days. I believe we see this level act as resistance for the stock, and we see a move lower down to support at around $202, which is where shares bottomed on November 10th. It's also where shares had bottomed roughly in August. Therefore, I believe this $200 level roughly will hold for Tesla. I think we come down to this level over the next couple weeks. And then let's take a look at Amazon here. So Amazon is coming off the test crucial resistance at around $146, which is where the stock had topped out in September. It's also where the stock had topped out just last week. It's also where the stock had topped out in August. So this is a major level of resistance for Amazon. I believe we see this level of resistance push shares lower down to support at around $135 over the coming trading days. So that is my prediction for Amazon. Then let's keep moving for Apple here. So Apple's has come up to test this resistance level at around 190. We briefly moved above it, but we're moving back below this level. I think we see this stock, which is overbought according to RSI, come down to the 100-day moving average at around $181. And then with NVIDIA here, so NVIDIA moved above resistance at around $485. But I believe we see a move lower down to support at around $450, which is roughly where the 100-day moving average sits. So I think we get a move lower down to the 100-day moving average over the coming weeks for NVIDIA, which obviously reported bearish earnings, or what the market saw as bearish earnings. And then for Upstart here, so Upstart had rejected this $25 resistance level, and we're seeing a move lower. I believe we come down to where the stock had bottomed in November. I believe we come down to support at around $20 over the coming trading days for the stock. And then with RIOT here, so RIOT is coming off the test resistance, or I really shouldn't say resistance. I should say the 100-day moving average at around $12.20. This is roughly where shares topped out in early November. Therefore, I believe we see a larger move lower off of this level, and we get a move lower down to about $10 for this stock. And then Mara, a similar situation here. We're coming off the test the 100-day moving average. I believe we see a rejection of this level, and we're going to move down to support at around $9.50, which is where we saw the stock consolidate back in the spring. It's also where we saw some consolidation in November as well. And then let's take a look at C3AI. So C3AI had rejected resistance at around $30, which is where shares had topped out in November. It's also where we saw some consolidation in the past. Therefore, I believe we see this level act as resistance for the stock, and we see a move lower down to the 50-day moving average at around $26 for the stock, which is basically a quick move down to $25 down to that 50-day moving average. So that is my prediction for C3AI. And then for Rivian here, so Rivian came down to test support at around $15.80. We held this level over the past couple weeks. Therefore, I believe we see this level hold again. So we did close around $16.50. Therefore, I believe we see a slight drop for this week for Rivian, and we end up holding this $15 support level. So still bearish, but I think we hold this $15 support level. And then for SoundHound AI, we had been coming off the test this 100-day moving average, and we had rejected it last week. Therefore, I believe we see this rejection kind of spiral into a bit of a move lower down to support at around $1.80, which is where the stock had bottomed in August. It's also where we saw some consolidation earlier in the month. So in conclusion, I think the broader market is set up from a technical standpoint to move lower over this coming week. What I'll do is I'll put out a video in the next hour or so, basically explaining my bearish thesis from a fundamental standpoint. So we have a huge Chinese wealth management firm go under over the weekend. We see some issues within the Israel Hamas prisoner swap. It seems like that may not happen. So that would kind of just exacerbate those tensions, which would obviously be a negative for the market. So I'll go over those fundamental issues in my next video. So I'll post that within the next hour or two. So with that being said, though, if you would like to see my daily portfolio moves, my exits, my entries, you can sign up in the description below to the Discord to see all that stuff. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you here next time.